My childhood was pretty dysfunctional.
Jewelz Christine can't recall much about her childhood. What she can doesn't seem worth remembering.
When I was 5, my mom passed away. After that point, I went to live with my father, and a lot of abuse started.
She was sent to foster care when she was 8 years old. The abuse stopped temporarily.
I went from different foster home to different foster home.
Jewelz had no one to protect her when an older neighbor took advantage of her. She was just 13 years old.
He was going to have a party, and he was older. He was in his probably mid to late 20s, and had invited me to go. And I knew that something was wrong in trying to leave and him grabbing me, and he ended up raping me. And didn't want to tell anyone. I'd been through so much already, and I just thought I felt really dirty and ashamed, and that's what I deserved, and I was a bad person.
After the rape, Jewelz made a decision.
I wanted to be in control and not feel the way that I felt, that I wasn't going to let that happen to me again, so instead I would be the initiator. I was partying, drinking, doing different drugs, got heavily involved in the punk rock scene. I was stealing cars, being a runaway, really trying to find some identity about myself.
By the age of 22, Jewelz was the mother of 2 young sons by a live-in boyfriend. She tried to be a good mother and give her kids what she never had. But the pressure of motherhood pushed her to the breaking point.
I wanted to be this perfect parent, and I wasn't. And it ended up sending me into a spiral of going back to drugs and partying, and I pretty much had a nervous breakdown.
She and the father of her children split up. Several years later, the boys went to live with their dad.
When I let them go live with their father, it just took me into a deeper spiral of doing, at that point, I was doing a lot of methamphetamine and dabbling with other drugs.
Then Jewelz joined a gang.
When I went to that gang lifestyle, all the anger and rage that would come out, I was excited at the opportunity that I thought maybe I could stab someone or kill them.
That's when she met and moved in with Mike, a punk rocker as angry as she was.
There was an immediate connection. I had never felt that in my life with anyone else, and he had a history of drug abuse as well.
One day when Jewelz went to pay the rent, her landlady was watching the 700 Club.
Jay Hazlett was living from one crack cocaine high to the next. In between, he planned when and how he could do the drug again.
The TV caught my eye, and it was a black and white reenactment, I believe, and it was showing this man smoking crack, and so immediately it drew my attention. We stopped talking, and I began to watch, and then they show him towards the end of the part that I saw in a picture, and he's around a whole bunch of youth, and they were talking about how he was a youth pastor and a little bit about his life. And at this point, I'm realizing that this is a Christian program, and something just made me stop watching it.
Around this same time, Mike's brother invited Jewelz to church.
They really wanted to meet me and for us to come to this church. And for the next couple months, my boyfriend and I just argued about it back and forth. He wanted to go, I didn't.
Mike decided he was going to church, and a few months later, Jewelz went with him.
So we went in and sat down, and I slunk down in the back seat and had put my sunglasses on.
When the pastor started to speak, Jewelz realized she recognized him.
And I heard this voice talking, and I thought, it sounds so familiar. And I remember taking my sunglasses off and leaning over and looking, and my mouth just dropping open and really saying, oh my God, is that the man that was on TV that I saw 4 months earlier? And I was kind of tripping out. Really? Could God be real? Is this really happening? And at the end of the service, I didn't give my heart to Jesus, but I went up front. I don't know how I got up there. And I stood before the pastor, and he just said, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Pastor Jay.
She kept going to church, but still struggled with drug abuse. 4 months later, Jewelz was ready to pray with Pastor Jay.
I was going through severe withdrawal symptoms, and Pastor Jay asked if he could pray for me.
And when I prayed over her, God instantaneously sobered her up, put her in her right mind. She was completely delivered at that point.
I felt a fiery white light go through my body, and I really had that experience. And I remember crying and in that moment and giving my heart to the Lord and praying for Him to come into my heart, and it was amazing.
Now she's gone from being a heroin addict who comes from an extremely hard background to now she literally works in the church, and she's on staff here serving in the house of God.
God's just restored peace in my life, a peace that surpasses all understanding, and I am so blessed beyond belief. There really is a Lord out there that cares for you and that believes in you even when you don't have any hope and you're desperate. And I know that being desperate, you know, we do desperate things and hurt people, hurt other people, and I went through all those experiences, but there's nothing that's ever too far from the hand of God to restore in your life.